So as the video suggests, and yes, I've shaved my beard off temporarily, this video is about substrates and soils and what I used and why I use those. And we'll come towards the end, we'll look at an in-depth opinion on soils and what each soil does. We'll have a look at some inert substrates for Neocaridina, and ultimately at the end, if you stick along long enough, we'll look at what I think's the best on the market for what I do, or what I sell, or what I'm going to sell, or what I choose to sell and why. So stick with it and we'll get to the end, and hopefully you'll find it interesting and enjoyable. Some of my tanks are labelled, some aren't, and I know what I've got in each of those. So just starting with this soil in my tiger tank. So this is my mixed tigers. This is called Blau Activa soil. I want to specifically talk about that in relationship to the tiger shrimp. Across the top then I've got a mix of various different soils, Aquasolums and stuff, and they all to a degree do a similar thing, and I'm sort of happy with where those are. But if we just drop down then onto the second row, these are labelled. I've got my orange eye blue tigers on a Tropica soil. Then I've got 3 tanks of Aquasolum, and then if we go right down to the bottom, excuse me, nearly fell over, I've got Mastersoil, I've got SL Aquasoil, so that's that one there, I've got Mastersoil again, and I've got Mastersoil again. So with the Mastersoil I was using up stuff. I'll talk about each of these soils individually and the ones that I stock and what I choose to use. Now if we're moving along to the second rack then, so at the bottom, on the bottom 2 shelves, if I can sort of turn that, I've got both of those are ADA Amazonia version 1, the gold ones. Then I've got some inert substrates in my Neo tanks. So those inert substrates are both Seachem fluorite. They're different types. I've then got help soil in this top tank. So this is Aquael help soil. And then finally this one's an ADA Amazonia. In fact, I think that's Mastersoil looking at that. So it's a larger grain. So I want to sort of just go through those. I'll show you each of those individually, talk about them, why I've used them. You guys obviously just looking around my tanks think, why does he use so many different soils? And I'll sort of speak about that shortly as well. So what's the purpose of a substrate? Apart from aesthetics, substrates are used for planting. If you're using planted tanks, they're used obviously for aesthetics, but in the sake of aquasoils in the main also buffer the substrate. So what does that mean? What it means is different aquasoils will remove carbonate hardness, and if you've got no carbonate hardness, you're prone to wild pH swings. And what soils do is they buffer the water to a specific pH. Now different soils buffer at different pHs, and I just want to talk about a few that I use. The first one I want to talk about is ADA Amazonia, the gold version. So this is often referred to as version 1 or V1. So this is the replacement for the original ADA Amazonia soil. Unfortunately with the ADA gold is they no longer produce it. They've discontinued it. It's no longer available. It was very expensive, but it created the optimal conditions for Caridina. So buffered to around 5.5, 5.8 pH. It had longevity, so it lasted a long time, you know, 12 months, 2 years, and it looked relatively nice. So that was almost the gold standard, probably across the shrimp hobby. So ADA Amazonia V1 you've seen me use. I do have 1 bag of it left, but it's for personal use. I may at some point sell it, I'm not sure yet, because ultimately if I can't get any more, then I need to move on to different soils. And I'll put a picture up of ADA Amazonia V1. So the second soil I want to talk about is Aquasolum It's made by a company called Aquavetro, which is a subsidiary or a new name for Seachem products. It only comes in 2 kilo bags. It's very small, it's very black. Unlike ADA Amazonia, it doesn't leach ammonia, but again it gives the optimal conditions, so pH 5.5, it buffers. Longevity, we're not sure about at this point because it's a new product, but I know people that have had that running for circa 12 months without any pH increases, so we know it lasts up to at least a year. It's a nice fine grain, it's very aesthetically pleasing, and it does what it says on the tin. So I'll put a picture of that up. Aquavetro Aquasolum I can get. I do have to spend a lot of money to buy that. I've currently got none in stock, but I do need to raise a stock order and get some of that in stock, which probably brings me on to my next soil. So my next soil that I use is Mastersoil, and Mastersoil comes in 2 sizes, normal and it's fine. There's another name for it. I think it's called powder, but it's not a powder, it's just a smaller grain. So again, does everything it says on the tin, buffers to the correct pH, looks nice. I'm more of a fan of the smaller grain than the normal, if I'm honest, but they both do a job. I used to stock it. The reason I've stopped stocking it is because it's not cost effective for me as a retailer to buy that product, pay the shipping on that and sell that, and I actually lose money on that, so it's just not worth me stocking that. There is another stockist in the UK, so Happy Shrimp House, Jacob up at Happy Shrimp House stocks and sells Mastersoil, but for me it's just not cost effective. The Mastersoil again leaches a bit of ammonia. You leave it 5, 6, 7 weeks, keep testing it. With regards back to the Aquasolum and the non-leaching substrate, so substrates that don't leach enough ammonia into the water to feed the nitrifying bacteria and help to cycle that tank, you will need to cycle that a different way. So if it's a new tank, you'll need to add an ammonia source, or alternatively what I do, if you watch the videos, is sometimes I'll put some soil in a net bag and put it next to a filter in a cycled tank, leave it for a few weeks, colonizes with bacteria, and then I use that in a UGF filter or on the base of another tank. So you do need a way of cycling that, and it doesn't sort of cycle itself because it doesn't produce ammonia. Moving on to that then, I'll put another picture up of Mastersoil, and I'll put a link to Happy Shrimp House in the description. I want to talk about another soil that I really like, and it's not really got to the forefront in the UK, and it's not as well known, and it's Aquael help soil. And I know a friend who's used it, I've used it myself, and between us we've not had a single death in over a year of tanks that use that soil. Now I'm not saying you won't get deaths on it. It does produce a little bit of ammonia, but not to the extent that ADA Amazonia would. And again, I'll put a picture up, so do stock and sell that. That's an ammonia producing one. Because of the lack of availability of ADA Amazonia, I needed to have a think about soils that I've used or will use or have used in the past that I'm happy to use in place of ADA Amazonia. So that one is Glasgarten Environment soil. I know people that have run tanks on that over 2 years. It's not an ammonia leach, and if it does, it's light. So you do need to find an ammonia source. Gives a really good 5.5 or sub 5.5 pH. And for me, I'm going to start stocking that and sort of concentrating more on that. And then the final, is it the final? No, it's not the final. So the final soil, I've got 3 more. So the other one that I'm going to start stocking regularly in small and large bags are the SL Aquasoil. Very aesthetically pleasing. It's a nice, smallish, dark grain. Doesn't leach ammonia. when we moved into this room, my Galaxies over onto it, and they've done fantastic on it. So again, when I do resets and stuff, I'm going to move on to that more so. It'll be a while, but that's the soil that I'm sort of going to concentrate on moving forward as a non-leaching soil. Other soils that you saw me use are Blau Activa soil. So again, I can get this readily available, comes in small or large bags. And you noticed at the start of the video I mentioned about tiger shrimp, so I'll put a picture of this up as well. It comes in dark and light, so there's two types, but what I noticed is the tiger shrimp prefer a slightly higher pH, so it buffers, it does everything exactly the same, but it gives me a circa 6.4 6.5 pH, or around 6.2 to 6.5, so it gives me a slightly higher pH. And I've had much better success with my tiger species on that shrimp. The last of the soils, I suppose, is Tropica. So you all know Tropica Soil as a planted tank soil. Apologies for the noise in the background, I'm doing water changes. So I've tested Tropica for shrimp, didn't do very well on it, but I have managed to keep a load of orange-eyed blue tigers. I've yet to see if they breed. Let's see what the spring and the sort of spring boom does, and if they do, then I'll recommend that. But again, I like to test and try things. Looking at soils then, moving forward, my recommendations for soils for Caridina are going to be 3 soils. I'm going to recommend Glasgarten Environment soil, and this is a lot because of availability for me. So I'm going to recommend Glasgarten Environment soil as sort of an all-round low pH, really good for Caridina. Likewise for another non-leaching, SL Aqua, which is a much darker soil, and if you like the darker aesthetic, that. For tiger shrimp, I'm going to recommend the Blau Activa, and the Tropica, I'll make my mind up, planted tanks. Tropica, I love it for planted tanks, but for shrimp, who knows. So the last one of my recommendations are Aquael help soil. I'm gobsmacked by it, if I'm honest, and it leaches a bit of ammonia, so it does help cycle. Out of all the soils, for what I've tested, Aquael help would be my go-to if I wanted an ammonia leaching one. For my resets, it would definitely be SL Aqua, more black soil, a non-leaching soil, just because I love that dark black look. So with the soil sort of out the way, let's move on to non-leaching substrates, and I'll put links to everything in the description. So my non-leaching, you can use what you want. I prefer 3. I prefer a dark one, a dark substrate, a lighter substrate like a gravelly colour, and sand. Sand if you're really looking for aesthetic, so just a regular light aquarium sand. And then for my 2 sort of gravel type substrates, I use a black sand, so Seachem, can't think of the name of it, Seachem fluorite black, and I use Seachem fluorite sand. Sand's like a clay colour. If you buy the sand for Neos, wash it, because if you don't, it's got a lot of dust in it. It does settle eventually, but it's got a lot of dust in it. So those would be my 3 go-tos for Neos. So fluorite black, fluorite sand, which is a clay colour, and then an aquarium sand, which is very fine and very light in colour. And if you're wondering why the thumbnail says down and dirty, it's because all of our American viewers often call soil dirt. So if you've enjoyed that or any of our videos, please hit the subscribe button, hit the notification button so you don't miss out on any of our other content, and look forward to speaking to you guys on the next video. Thanks for watching, everyone.